Welcome, kia ora, bula, hello, and good day. And thank you for joining us here on our webinar about the Australian, New Zealand and Pacific's Plastics Pact, or ANZPAC as we like to call it. My name is Meredith Epp. I'm the Industry Partnership Manager at APCO. And importantly, before we get started today, I'd like to acknowledge, and in the spirit of reconciliation, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, the sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait peoples today. So we have an exciting program for everyone here today. There we go. So we're hearing about the updates on what's happening with ANZPAC. So a little bit of background and about the pacts and the global network. Then we'll be hearing from APCO's Partnership and Development Officer, Leslie Fox, on a progress update around some of the consultation and the work that's been done. We'll also hear from Leslie about the benefits and initiatives that are being developed as part of the ANZPAC Plastics Pact. I'm also excited to have with us today Richard Smith and Ted Bailey as two different speakers here. You'll see them up on the screen. And they'll be sharing their perspectives as pact participants from other regional pacts around the world and what the need is here for the Australian and New Zealand Plastics Pact. Then we'll go in and speak a little bit about membership and what does that look like. And then at the end, we'll have some time open for Q&A and next steps. So in case anyone wasn't familiar with ANZPAC before joining the session today, thanks for joining. And ANZPAC was launched in March of 2020 at the government's National Plastics Summit. And ANZPAC was really launched in recognition that only 16% of plastic packaging used in Australia is currently being recycled, with low recovery rates across the region. So to help address those low recovery rates, ANZPAC was launched. ANZPAC is part of the Global Plastics Pact network through the MacArthur New Circular Economy Plastics Initiative. At present, there is a great deal of distributed effort across Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands across a broad range of initiatives to address plastic issues. Whilst this momentum is admirable and the engagement is fantastic, there's a great risk that the fragmented nature of the current landscape could diminish the potential impact of a circular transition for plastics and ultimately produce inconsistent and less effective approach. So if we're aiming to effectively transition to a circular economy for plastics, a concerted and collaborative effort is required from a diverse range of stakeholders. Some items of problematic and unnecessary plastics need to be designed out, and reuse and new business models need to be introduced. Plastic is a global supply chain problem, and that to manage that effectively, Australia also needs an international approach, which is why the PACT network is a solid fit. The PACT network is a proven and effective model that's being rolled out across the world to help transition different businesses and economies to a circular economy for plastics across the world. So that is the Plastics Pact. And what is the ANZPAC Plastics Pact? So working with a global network of connecting initiatives, working to implement a common vision. We understand that there is a global supply chain, but we need to connect that and make it work towards a common vision and a shared goal. It's implementing a system that keeps plastics in the economy and out of the environment, and also out of landfill. ANZPAC also is an essential enabler to mobilize organizations, governments, and key stakeholders that are part of the plastics supply chain. ANZPAC joins over 1,000 other organizations united behind a common vision and targets for a circular economy for plastic around the world. So you may recognize the gentleman up on the screen. And if you need a bit of inspiration, this is Sir David Attenborough. I'll be showing you a quick video here, just recognizing some of the support that ANZPAC and the Plastics Pact network is receiving on a global basis.
By 2050, there could be more plastic than fish in the oceans. Yet the problems start long before plastic reaches our oceans, rivers and beaches, and so must the solutions. We must tackle this flood at the source. We must eliminate the plastic we don't need. We must innovate, so all the plastic we do need is designed to be safely reused, recycled or composted. And we must circulate everything we use, making sure the plastic we produce stays in the economy and never becomes waste or pollution.
Join our journey to make plastic waste and pollution a thing of the past.
Great. So I always love David's voice, something very soothing and relaxing about that. And I wanted to share that video because I think it's really important not only to understand the magnitude of the pacts, but having individuals like Sir David Attenborough and Dame Ellen MacArthur support the Plastic Pact is something that's so incredibly important. It's not because they're just using their celebrity to endorse something. These are individuals that have pushed the bounds of nature and have experienced nature like many of us could only dream of doing in our own lives. And through those experiences, they really understood the finite resources and the finite resources of the planet. And that's why they're really pushing for this huge global change. And that's what the PACT network is really aiming to do, rethinking, remanufacturing, understanding how we can make this major global shift. Because the magnitude of the problem we need to solve is so great, we must need to take bold and urgent action because the cost of inaction is simply too high. So I just wanted to share a couple other statistics from our region in terms of why it's so important that we take action on this issue now. So we mentioned this before, but currently only 16% of plastic packaging used in Australia is recovered for future use. And additionally, only 2% of plastic packaging is made up of post-consumer recycled content. So if we're working towards a circular economy for plastics, those numbers absolutely need to increase. Similarly, in New Zealand, 41% of plastic containers are going to landfill that could be recycled. Another 68 million bottles per year could potentially be recycled are going to straight to landfill instead. And in the Pacific Islands, an estimated 300,000 tons of waste plastic is generated in the nations each year. Now, it's not just a material loss of these plastics, but it's also an economic loss. As we continue to operate in a linear economy, it is an incredibly large missed opportunity for job creation. If we look to create a circular economy, it isn't just about increasing recycling rates, it's about fundamentally rethinking the economic system. If we're trying to work circularly, that means we need to work through these different loops. And we understand that each nation has unique social, cultural, and environmental and economic challenges and opportunities. So what's being done? ANZPAC is part of a larger Plastics Pact network, the 9th Pact, to be joining one other regional pact as well. Regionally, programs to address plastic waste and pollution are rolled out by state, federal, local governments, community groups, NGOs, and a diverse range of businesses and industry associations. I'm sure everyone that is here today has some kind of initiative that they're working on in terms of plastics, and you have an interest in this space. But again, that distributed and fragmented effort across the region could diminish the rewards and the benefits for a circular economy. So it really is about coming together, working together, understanding what are those common goals that we're trying to achieve, and creating some tangible action not just about talking about it, but putting the rubber to the road and having some plans, accountability, and transparency. So with that, I will hand it over to the lovely Leslie Fox. Leslie, the Partnership and Development Officer at APCO, who's been doing some fantastic work on ANZPAC Plastics Pact in consultation. So Leslie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Meredith. So yeah, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the progress of the Pact so far. So yes, so after some awareness raising and some initial discussion back in February of this year, we announced our intention to develop the Pact. So we initially sat down with a number of organizations representing NGOs, governments, academia, different brands, to really discuss what the Pact could initially look like. And then, unfortunately, as we all experienced, COVID hit. We all adjusted to that. And then we quickly got back on board in terms of working with our partners at the MacArthur Foundation and the RAP UK to establish what the Pact could really look like. So then in September of this year, with over 120 participants, we showed elements of what the Pact could look like, in terms of the proposed membership structure, the targets, and also the reporting structure as well. And we had representation from across the region, as well as from different industries, public and private as well. So we used this information, we collated all the feedback we received, and then started into our next consultation phase. So then over the months of September and October, myself and Meredith, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and RAP UK met with over 50 organisations and individuals to discuss opportunities, barriers, what could be of benefit, and really just ideas of how we could work together towards the targets. So I just want to share with you now a little of some information on the results of that consultation. So the first one was, there is definitely stakeholders that we met with definitely want to take the next step, and they want to take the next step now. They're looking for acceleration and the way to do this. They want to be the trailblazers, which was just so motivating to learn about. They want to innovate. They want to work their way up the waste hierarchy and look at alternative materials, alternative models, and different solutions to help overcome barriers. And so this was one of the findings that we found. There was also this strong desire to collaborate, to work together on maximizing and researching and developing new opportunities and overcoming common and detrimental barriers as well. The idea to collaborate was on a regional level, was on a national level, and was also on this global level, which the Pact will provide. And it was across similar industry and also working with different industry along the supply chain as well. So this was the strong desire to collaborate. The stakeholders that we discussed with realized that while they are doing a number of projects themselves, collaboration is a way for us to achieve the greatest impact in this area. What I loved was that our stakeholders were keen to take the next step, but they were not reckless. They wanted information and they wanted certainty to establish confidence in order to take the next step and invest. They wanted education and knowledge in order to identify whether they should go into recycled content, whether they should purchase new technology or redesign an existing packaging. They wanted to have certainty so that they can establish whether a decision is worth the time, the money, or the risks associated with it. So there was this idea and very common theme of this certainty or confidence regarding investment that came up. And finally, there was this strong desire again for access to intelligence or expert information. Stakeholders wanted the best. They wanted access to experts on a national, regional and global level. and they would use this information then to support innovation and investment decisions as well. So these key findings led us on to our next slide, which is all about the different benefits and initiatives that are being developed as part of the ANZPAC Plastic Pact. Where do these findings from our consultation lead us to, and what do we plan to do? So I'll talk about the key areas or key focus areas. I'll also give you an idea of our pioneer initiatives that will be starting in January once the pact is actually launched, and then I'll give you a bit of an idea of timeframes as well. So basically, based on these findings, we've categorized into 3 focus areas. The first one is innovation. Now, I am just going to tell you there is going to be quite a bit of information here, but Meredith will be talking to you about a really great information pack, which will be sent out to you over the next kind of couple of weeks in the very near future. And in that pack will be all this information and more. So feel free to, and we look forward to sending this out, and there'll be a lot of information for you in there. So first of all, innovation. We will be supporting technological design and end marketplace initiatives that will drive collaborative work across the system to enable systematic change. We will be driving solutions for such things as reuse opportunities and recyclable plastic materials through a sectoral approach, and that's where we were looking at this investment focus. And finally, knowledge. We will be working hard to sharing and collaborating with stakeholders a number of key issues in order to join up thinking and harmonise where possible, and really also drive this need for expert information by driving research approaches into circular plastics in the region. So these key areas have led us on then to identifying and the following pioneer initiatives and activities. So in January 2021, we want to hit the ground running, and that is why we are aiming to deliver these projects as soon as we launch the initiative in January. Now, I might just add before I start that the majority of these are Australian-based projects only. We are going to be working hard, and we do know that there is a need to work with key stakeholders and organisations in the Pacific Islands and New Zealand to co-design and collaborate to deliver projects on the ground there. So you'll see from my time frame later that we will be spending time with organisations there, not to duplicate work or to do activities that are already in place, but more so to work with organisations to overcome certain barriers that they would like to work on. So we'll be working on co-designing these projects in the first half of next year. I will share some common themes that we have identified from our consultation process, but I'll share that just a little bit later. So to talk to you again about these projects here, the first one is there under innovation will be the Circular Plastics Research Initiative. This initiative will look at innovation and research, focusing on alternative materials, reuse opportunities, prototype testing in regards to recycled content, and design innovations. And that's what we will focus on initially in regards to that initiative. And that will be working with key partners to deliver that project as well. In regards to investment, we will be, many of you might know about the pledge program that we are developing in APCO. However, this will be the plastics element of this, because like Meredith mentioned, plastics is the sole focus up here, and a lot of attention is needed in this area. So this is where we will drive focus in terms of plastics and really allocate the resources and the time to really focus on this aspect of this program. So the Plastics Pledge program is a demand program where organizations commit to set a certain tonnage that they want to integrate in as recycled content into their packaging. And the Plastics Pledge program will help to facilitate and drive investment in technology and processes, and really support the transition from organizations making the commitment to increasing recycled content to actually accessing quality and the necessary volumes to then integrate it into their packaging as well. We will be establishing an investment group, and that will be in a collaboration project, which will see facilitation of investment in research and funding mechanisms to ensure that the necessary to provide certainty over investment for organizations all along the supply chain. We will be establishing and delivering a number of product stewardship schemes, which will see the scaling up of collection and reprocessing of such items as soft plastics, plastic oil bottles, and horticultural plastics as well. Now, the product stewardship projects will range from different areas. For example, some of these issues like the plastic oil bottles is quite a topic for Australia, but as we can all agree, soft plastics is quite a regional and a global issue as well. So these product stewardship scheme will benefit different areas as well. In terms of knowledge, we'll be looking at the ANZPAC verification program for plastics recycled materials. I think there's not much more I can say on that. It's really a verification program and providing that information about plastic recycled materials to give people insight and confidence to integrate recycled plastic into their packaging. And finally, we'll be developing a knowledge hub. This stems from people's desires for access to information. There will be a number of, it'll be an exclusive knowledge platform for knowledge to be shared, and will include such things as reports, case studies, working groups, global network forums, and customer education. While these issues, all these projects here, while some of them will be based in one region, for example, Australia, we will be obviously sharing learnings and sharing models and sharing aspects of it across the region as needs be. And just to add there that I mentioned that I would talk a little bit about this. Like I said, we will be co-designing and working with organisations and individuals in the Pacific and Islands and New Zealand to deliver tailored projects to these and activities to these areas. But in terms of some findings from the initial engagement there, the key areas for the Pacific Islands has been in regards to new market models, opening up plastic exports, for example, links to reprocessors and the waste industry here in Australia, product stewardship schemes and container deposit schemes, and also access to information and data regarding plastic packaging as well. So that's just the type of different areas that we've been looking into, and that has come back from our engagement with stakeholders there. In regards to New Zealand, our engagement with stakeholders has been in regards to different sector approaches where certain barriers are coming about in terms of different sectors that could really help these, by overcoming these barriers, we could help these sectors. There's also the aspect of recycled content, access to, and the different issues that can arise in regards to recycled content. Soft plastics has come up as well a lot from our engagement, and also innovation and that need for innovation in packaging. So these are areas that we're going to be looking into more into the future. I think we can go on to our next slide. Again, all the information about these projects and activities will be going into the information pack, which will be provided over the next couple of weeks. So finally, just to go through a little bit about the time frame, we are nearly finished phase 2, which is the development phase. So that's due to finish now at the end of the year. And then we will be going into our basically our realization or our action phase, where we will be starting to deliver the projects that I just mentioned, or sorry, initiatives that I just mentioned, and also the following activities. So as once we establish there in or launch in January, we will be launching our collective action group. So this is our governance side of the pact. It will include representation from across different industries and also from across the region as well. This governance group will really help provide the direction for the pact. It will look at all different elements, from projects to design elements to working group formations, different things like that. And we're really excited to have that group of experts going to be involved in the direction of the pact. We will also be establishing working groups, which will be based on different things like polymer types and projects. And these will help to design future elements or future initiatives in addition to the initiatives that I mentioned earlier. Like I said, we'll be working with New Zealand and Pacific Islands to look at different projects as well that we can help with. And finally, we're going to be working on developing the roadmap. And this is a very a standard procedure with any pact, where we establish a roadmap with partnership with key stakeholders to a roadmap to achieving the targets. There will be a lot of material flow analysis and data collection, and we will be establishing the reporting framework as well within that first year. And I think that might be it.
Great, thank you, Leslie.
That
was fantastic oversight of all the projects, the initiatives, and some of the work that's been done. So thank you to everyone that has participated. I know there are a number of people on the call that have contributed to where we've gotten to so far. So next, I am pleased to invite along a couple of our pact participants to speak about their perspectives. I've done a triple P there, so hopefully it's not too much of a tongue twister. But we do have two pact members that are going to speak a little bit about their experience. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Richard Smith. So Richard is the Director of Safety, Quality and Sustainability at Amcor. Richard is an experienced and innovative leader of organizational change and business value creation through new product development, safety, quality, and sustainability. He's an industry leader in packaging and packaging innovation. I think he was speaking earlier today at the AIP conference. And Amcor is a global leader in developing and producing responsible packaging for food, beverage, pharmaceutical, medical, home, personal care, and other products. Amcor has over 230 sites across the globe and nearly 50,000 employees operating in over 40 countries. So Richard, it's great to have you here. And we also have with us Ted Bailey. So Ted is the Regional Design and Packaging Manager at Colgate-Palmolive. Ted has over 25 years experience in consumer goods and managing packaging design artwork for the South Pacific Division. From design to initial manufacturing, Ted brings a wealth of experience around packaging design and also in the sustainability space. Colgate-Palmolive is truly a global brand. It's been operating for over 200 years with over 200 well-known household brands touching hundreds of millions of lives globally. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. We know you're both members of other pacts in other regions as well through your organizations. I'm going to go ahead and ask you just 3 different questions. We'll answer each one at a time. You're each welcome to answer these. So we'll go ahead and kick off with the first question. So what benefits have you seen by being involved in other pacts? And Richard, we might start with you first, if that's all right.
Okay. Thanks, Meredith. Thanks for the introduction. I probably should shorten it for you next time. So plastics pacts, for us at Amcor, we're involved in quite a number around the world. The one in the UK, in South Africa, the one just starting in the US. What we see is that they really provide a forum within a region and across the value chain to help solve some really difficult challenges I think we know we all face with that specific attention, I suppose, on plastics. And we think that's certainly a real benefit. And the other benefit we see is that it's not just within a region really, because you are part of this global network, that we're seeing innovation ideas and obviously the opportunity for us as a global packaging provider also contribute to the people participating in the pacts as well in that way. And we think that that's a really positive thing for us to be able to do. So, you know, there's some of the elements we see as being reasons to be part of the pact, Meredith. Yeah.
Thanks, Richard. And Ted, I guess from your perspective, from Colgate-Palmolive, and we've had some great conversations with you and the team, especially over the recent joining of the US Plastics Pact. What have you seen as some of those key benefits?
So yeah, to your point, Colgate is has an association with the MacArthur Foundation, and I think the joining of plastic pacts is a natural transition to regionalise the commitment that we're making at a global level. Obviously, regionally, we have different infrastructure needs, we have different recycling needs, there's a different amount of materials in the chain. And so obviously then the challenges are different. So look, I think what's important to us here is that we realise that Colgate realises that regionally, to build that infrastructure, we need some sort of collective goals, or to see that, or, you know, companies like Colgate are investing at a global level, and we know that at a regional level that we need to have some collective goals so that we can help to drive that investment or create those business opportunities for downstream recyclers, for our customers, for our consumers. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Ted. All right, gentlemen, on to our second question. So, why are you interested in being part of the ANZPAC Plastics Pact? And why is a regional pact so important to you?
I'll go on that one, Meredith. I mean, I think locally and regionally, we see it's incredibly important to be able to build across the value stream and with partners, whether that's retailers and brand owners or people doing the reclaiming, the MRFs, you know, the various trade associations that exist in the different parts of the region, NGOs. We think that we can learn and we can help address the needs across that value and stream, and actually also, I suppose, help build on the strategies that are going to really help reduce the amount of plastic pollution that is actually happening and minimise the impacts on the environment. So we see that as incredibly important for this region in which we operate in.
Thanks, Richard.
So yeah. Look, I'll add to what Richard said. I think that you know, in my notes, I noticed that a lot of the things that I think Richard and I are fairly aligned. But a couple of other points I would make would be that companies like Colgate-Palmolive have already started to design for sustainability. And our problem is that without any infrastructure, any circular designs end up in a linear model. And the other 2 points I'd make are that the speed of packaging innovation has kind of outpaced the capabilities of the recycling infrastructure, or we're starting to outpace it. So we're starting to ask questions, starting to bring what we know is technically recyclable, or we're moving to stuff that's technically recyclable, we just don't have a stream for it. In its current form, the recycling system can't deliver the supply of recycled materials demanded either. So from a purely business perspective, I think that anybody who's out there trying to buy recycled resins at the moment would have a similar would have their own story to tell, and it wouldn't necessarily be great. I mean, it's a tough market out there to find enough recycled resin. So I think that plastics pacts have some fairly emotional kind of benefits, but they also have some very practical benefits as well. So that's what, we're helping, we've got the will, we just need to develop the pathways.
Yeah, I think those are really important points, Ted. I think it goes back to that idea of collaboration being so important too. Is that not just within kind of the supply chain, but the wider context around academia and government and understanding where industry is shifting, so that they can look at different incentives or levers that can help to support that kind of change. So thank you both. Third question we have here too, considering you've both been members of other pacts in other regions or other countries, what recommendations and what should new members consider when joining a pact?
Well, I think that the element that's really important about the pacts for me as well, from what I'm seeing, when we talk internally, obviously across our global work streams within Amcor, is that the plastic pacts are providing some really well-aligned targets. And we really think that those targets are incredibly important to help drive behaviours. It provides a framework for which we can all work together. And I'm very pleased to see as well when Leslie was talking about that there'll be this concept around the pledges. And again, they're incredibly important, I think, as members that we take those on, because particularly, and I look very much at the soft plastic side of things across our region, we are going to need some significant change and investment to be able to create the sort of changes that we're aspiring to through a Plastics Pact. And so those commitments, I think, are incredibly important for us as an industry to make. And that, I think that would be one of the things that people that are considering to join ensure and discuss back internally that those commitments can be made and really stand up to those to help us as an industry to make the changes that are required.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that if you're ready to make the commitment and you want to be part of the strategy moving forward, I think you have to join the pact. I think that collectively we can create the momentum. But if you're one company alone, I think that it's basically impossible. There's a lot of information out there. You know, look, I think today my sustainability meeting started at 5 a.m. today, and I had a break just before this meeting, and look, the amount of data that's out there, I think it's imperative that we can concentrate it and form form ourselves into one body that with common goals, so that we can actuate it. I think that at the moment, if you don't have a goal, you never achieve it, and I think the pact helps us to do that.
Totally agree, Ted.
Yeah. Thank you both. Really appreciate your insight and knowledge. And if anyone has questions for you, please do put those in the chat box, and we're happy to talk about those in a bit further. So I think it's really important to hear from Ted and from Richard, and we know that there's about 1,000 organizations that are part of PACs globally as well, and to really kind of hear that firsthand experience of how they've experienced it and what does the membership really bring as we could continue to work through these PACs. So we'll talk a little bit now just about membership. We'll talk a little bit about the different partnership types, and then how will members benefit from being part of the PACs, and what will that look like? So I think to Ted's point and to some of the points that we've made before about collaboration and how this is such an important aspect, ANZPAC has two different membership types. So one is as an ANZPAC member, which would be appropriate for brand owners, for retailers, or for anyone operating in the plastics supply chain. But importantly, there's also an ANZPAC supporter role, and that is more suited for government, for academia, for community groups, NGOs, and industry associations. And I think that those are both really important aspects, because we often talk about how this work isn't going to happen by just one organization alone. I think we're all very much across that point at this point in time, but it's a really exciting opportunity as we work through ANZPAC to kind of rethink and expand our minds about who else might have some ideas in terms of the innovation that needs to happen in academia. Is it chemists, other scientists? What kind of support can government provide? And then community groups as well. Through Leslie and I's conversations with various potential members and stakeholders, we really understood that a lot of this is about education, and that's where community groups, NGOs, and industry associations really come in and have an important role to play as well. It's not just about consumers and understanding the perception of plastics, but it's also that industry and the business side and understanding what we're all working towards. So those are the two different membership types that will be open. We will be sending out a membership information pack next week that will have further details and all the nuts and bolts around this as well. So what does membership look like? And I think, you know, joining part of this Plastics Pact network merely means that you're leaders in this space. It's for those kind of businesses that are looking to stand up and organizations that want to take a leadership role in the plastic space, and that, like Ted said, really want to be part of setting that strategy in terms of where we'll head for a region and opening that dialogue globally. So members will have access to different types of research throughout the regional network, but also the Global Plastics Pact, and that potential to collaborate and open up the dialogue that's so critically important. To support that, there'll be a number of member-only resources. So reports, Leslie mentioned before, looking at things like a material flow analysis and data, which will help you as a business or as an organization to help make sound decisions that are evidence-based. You'll also be belonging to that regional collective commitment, so those opportunities to work within the region on a very localized level as well. Leslie mentioned this too, but that idea of working groups, so focusing primarily at first on polymers, different polymer types, but looking at what some of those other working groups are and what's necessary for the region. We're very much open to listening and understanding what are the needs of our region. This is a two-way dialogue that we're working towards. And also with the CAG, the Collective Action Group, making sure that there's fair governance and equal representation across all of the different nations that are within the Pact, so that we can work towards these goals collectively and together. And then also joining other different projects on innovation, so under the Circular Plastics Research Initiative, like I mentioned, around research and partnering closely with academia, students that are coming through different global networks. How can we really leverage off of the large nature and scale of the Pact? So how will this make an impact? As a lot of you know, and a lot of you have already indicated, that there's that chance to meet individual organization commitments on plastics. So it's an opportunity for you to be really clear about what are some of those targets and how are we going to get there, to articulate those commitments. Also helping to support where that innovation and investment needs to be made. So understanding what's coming through the pipeline and how we can get that critical mass across the line to invest in new technologies, looking at alternative materials, what are our options. And importantly, those co-design projects within the Pacific Islands and within New Zealand. The ANZPAC group is very committed to having a collaborative and open dialogue, understanding that the work within the Pacific Islands and New Zealand, there's some great work happening there already, and understanding how can we work best together and continue to align that work moving forward. And at the end, ANZPAC is really that opportunity to demonstrate leadership towards the circular economy for plastics, and to be a part of this wider dialogue, including the verification for recycled plastic materials. So we hope that a number of you are interested in joining the Plastics Pact. You may have some more questions, and as I mentioned, we will be sending out a membership information pack early next week. But we'll open it up now we have about 10 minutes or so for question and answers. Feel free to ask them to Leslie or to myself, but also to Ted and Richard to hear from a membership perspective as well. So feel free, we've had some great questions that have already come through on the Q&A screen. And Leslie, I might get you to start off. I think the first question that came in right off the bat from Ian Jacoby, which is one that we've been asked a couple of times, is around the Plastics Pact. Is it solely focused on packaging, or is it extended to plastics generally? Leslie, is that one for you?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this. So the ANZPAC Plastic Pact will be focused on plastic packaging. So that will be our main priority. Obviously, I'm sure people can find information about different plastics that will come out of the pact that can help with plastic products or different things like that. but the primarily focus will be on plastic packaging.
Great. All right, thanks, Leslie.
Okay.
We have another one here around life cycle analysis. So how valid is life cycle data being used to inform the discussion on ANZPAC vision for a circular economy for plastics, particularly with some of the long supply chains? We know our region is kind of remote areas for some of us, associated with CO2 emissions across the region. So I'll speak to this one a little bit at first, but Richard, it might be good to hear from you too a little bit if you have anything else to add around life cycle analysis and how that can go into making informed decisions around plastic use.
Sure.
So again, I guess we mentioned previously that there'll be work done in terms of research reports and tapping into some of the work that has been done globally. And it really is about helping to make those evidence-based decisions. So life cycle data absolutely will be something that will be considered, and some support that will be provided for member organizations that join the pact in terms of how do we make some of those best decisions. And this is something that came up a lot when Leslie and I were talking with different organizations around their challenges with plastics, that sometimes it's the perception of that versus the reality of how the life cycle actually measures up, where consumers might be pushing back on, oh no, it's plastic, but it actually in reality has a much lower carbon footprint. So I imagine that will be an area to explore as well. Richard, do you have anything else to add to that, and maybe if that's a focus area from any other areas?
Yeah, look, I mean, from a perspective of product design and change, I mean, we as an organisation definitively use LCA as a tool for understanding the changes that we are proposing to make. And I think life cycle analysis would be incredibly important to use as we look at the various options for different parts of our region as well. And it might be that a packaging material and design might be more suitable in some regions because of the lack of infrastructure versus maybe something in a large city, for argument's sake. So I think that what we will need to do, and this gets back to the reason for having a pact, is that organisations like my own have those tools. We can work together on those things. They're the elements that need to be considered. We certainly consider life cycle to be important, and it is. Obviously, we have also an obligation to ensure that we're reducing the amount of plastic that is entering our environment, and so our considerations need to be made relative to that as well. But a life cycle analysis alongside any of those other decision-making elements is incredibly important.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. Right. We have another one here that, Leslie, I think might be good for you. So Nicole says, thanks team, great to see this update. Question on product stewardship. So these are probably about some of the initiatives you mentioned. Will these projects connect with the recently announced Product Stewardship Centre of Excellence with UTS?
Well, yes, I mean, anything in regards to, we will not be working in isolation. We will definitely be working with the Centre of Excellence and any other organisations in regards to these different schemes and different projects. We think we want to work in collaboration with different organisations. So once that is up and running, our intention will be to do that.
Thanks, Leslie. We have another one here from Sally. So Sally is asking, are there any plans to expand the ANZPAC Plastics Pact to the infrastructure sector who are looking or are using plastic products containing recycled plastics? So Leslie, I don't know if you want to have a first go at that, but I imagine there's probably a market for recycled plastics materials as well.
Yes, I mean, we're seeing a lot of innovation in where plastics is entering, things from cement blocks. We're also seeing paving, different things like that, where soft plastics is being used in construction. and it's a very innovative and exciting area that is being developed at the moment. So yes, definitely, infrastructure is something that we will look into further. That could be something that we co-design as part of with the working groups once they're established. That maybe we'll look into that area a little further. I think it might be a case that we will look using data. We will probably establish first the problem materials, and then use the problem materials to drive us or focus us in different avenues, whether that be in infrastructure or into different opportunities there. She did ask whether the infrastructure construction can be involved. Yes, definitely, and they can sign up to be a member. We want everybody involved, and so yeah, that's definitely an option there.
Great. Yes, thanks, Leslie. And great question there, Nicole. One other question here, and Leslie, this one's probably for you as well. So we talked about some of the initial projects being Australian focused, and then someone's asking, is there an intention to delay membership charges to the New Zealand and Pacific companies while that co-design phase is occurring?
I'm not sure about that. That we can take that into consideration. We've established kind of what it looks like now, and that's going out there in the information pack next week or in the coming weeks. So yeah, but we can take that into consideration.
Absolutely. Great. And then I think we'll have one final question here. And this one is coming from Holly Chung. So Holly has asked, as Richard and Ted have pointed out, it's currently difficult to source PCR resins in Australia. How will the Pact go about doing this? And Holly, it is a great question, and it's definitely a key challenge. Leslie mentioned the Pledge Project, and that Pledge Project has a couple of different surveys that have fed into it in terms of the background research that we've been doing. And one of the key difficulties that we've realized in terms of using recycled materials within Australia is around cost, and then understanding what is available, and then understanding who are those suppliers that actually do supply it. So that Pledge Project is modeled off of a similar project that happened in Europe, where then they really got together, understood who was pledging to use those materials, brought them together in a room, which we might not be able to do in the current context, but we could bring everybody together in a Zoom and go by those polymer types and understand what is the demand, where are those key barriers and challenges throughout those different systems and the supply chain. And then that will help to give confidence up or down the supply chain in terms of where those areas of investment are really necessary. So that's one way that we'll be hoping to address those key challenges around sourcing PCR resins. All right. Okay, I guess we'll open it up just quickly to Ted and Richard, our distinguished guests today. And if you had any final parting comments for the listeners here today.
Just on that point you were talking about before in terms of PCR, today I talked to many of our customers, and they would ideally like to incorporate PCR into their soft plastics, and it is a challenge for us today to get that. But I'm very excited about the opportunities that actually do exist, and it's we need to create the support across our industry, and this is where I believe that targets and pledges are definitely required, because there's going to be some investments required across the supply chain. And some of this means that it won't be and I can see some of the chat discussion going on, some of these resins won't be at virgin prices, and that's going to be part of the challenge. And I think that's where the pledges are going to be incredibly important, because if organisations are going to make large investments to make this reality, they're going to need certainty to their shareholders and to their stakeholders to be able to make those investments. That's where I see a pact like this. It's one of those elements that helps us to create that certainty across our region. And that's why we as ANCOR see it so incredibly important. So I think that's really my main point.
Thank you, Richard. Ted, anything to add?
Yeah. Look, on that point, look, I love this whole PCR discussion. This takes up a lot of my headspace. I think that what we see at the moment is sensitivity to the price of PCR because the oil price is very low, and therefore the virgin price is very low. So you know, I don't see that as a continuing situation, and I think that there's a market, there's a global market for specific, well, much so for PET. Coming online is some PE plastics. You know, you're getting more and more PE plastics. But I think that as, you know, if part of the idea of the pact is, you know, to look collectively at what we're sort of generating so that industry has some indication of where they might want to spend their money. But, you know, they also know that they're doing this into a global market, you know. So I would expect that over time that as more and more investment comes on board, that you might see, you know, perhaps even, I know a lot of companies are making big pledges now. And a lot of companies, a lot of big companies have come out and made some really significant promises. And so, look, I think that on the one hand, you look at the promises and you think, oh my goodness, how can the price not go up? But on the other hand, you know, things like the pact just show a great business opportunity for somebody to come in and say, you know what I should do? Make recycled resin. So yeah, I mean, it feels like, you know, I don't want to tell Richard his business, but come on, Richard, this is easy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll underwrite. We'll buy as much PCR as we can get hold of. You know, that's one of the challenges for us is it's not there for the
right now. I think right there. I think right now I think that we're all looking around the market for it, and we are seeing some investment. And we're aware of some investment locally and in the region, but you know, to be frank, it's not really enough. You know, for some products, it will limit recycled content in the product where you'd rather be 100. You know, maybe you won't be able to be 100 because 100% recycled because it's just not available. You know, and for some soft plastics where we'd like to have some, you know, where like beggars at the door. So yeah, I think part of the pact that for me is a really important part of the pact to give industry some surety of what's going to happen in the future. And I think there was a question in there about how the pact works for big companies versus little companies. And you know, you got two people here today that could be perceived as being from kind of bigger companies. But I think that the infrastructure benefits the small companies. You know, if the infrastructure doesn't exist, no one's going to build it just for a small company in the South Pacific, you know. It's a collectivism of the pact. It's all of us together, you know, that create the tonnage, and then it's all of us that get the benefit of it with the different pathways. So, you know, I don't think it makes a difference really if the company. Well, I mean, of course, it makes a difference if the company's really big or really small, but I think that there are benefits for both.
Yeah, it is, and it's very much. We talk a lot about collective impact, but it is that those investments help to have a bigger impact and a collective really ripple-on effect to everything else. Richard, Ted, I think you put that beautifully, and Ted, you also mentioned the idea of opportunity. I think sometimes in this plastic space you can get a bit overwhelmed by all of the challenge that lies ahead of us, but if you flip it on its head, what you said there is exactly correct. It really is a massive opportunity in terms of working through and how we will change this. So thank you again to our guest speakers. We really appreciate your time, and to Leslie and to you as well. And for everyone joining us, just a few next steps. So next week we will be sending out an information pact. We have your information, but if you have any further questions, please send those through directly to the APCO team, and we will do our best to respond to those. So we will receive an information pack. And in that pact is a form where you can sign up if you would like to come on board. And then we invite all of those members and supporters to come on board and to join us for a launch in early 2021. As part of that pact that will be coming out also will be a specific section there for New Zealand and the Pacific Islands that will speak directly to some of the initiatives there and how we'll be working together in the future. So thank you again to Ted and Richard and to Leslie and to everyone for joining us and your incredible engagement through the Q&A and through the chat box today here as well. We really are incredibly excited about this opportunity moving forward and the momentum that we've seen here today. So thank you all. I think Joe's going to pop up a quick poll here. We'd appreciate you filling that in just to get some further information. But have a great rest of the day, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Meredith. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.